Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and I'm finally come around to doing the Week 10 Dynasty Mode episode. As you can see, the headline for the ESPN magazine is Conference Crush. The SEC Game of the Week pits number 7 McNary Central against number 1 Florida. And I'll go and show you the bowl rankings and the top 25 polls right now. As you can see, the headline here is In the Hunt, does TCU have what it takes to win it all? But the rankings here is number 1 is Florida, number 2 is TCU, number 3 is Wisconsin, 4 is LSU, 5 is Florida State, 6 is McNary Central, 7th is Hawaii, 8th is USC, 9th is Arkansas, mainly because the computer loves Arkansas, 10th is Miami, 11th is Virginia Tech, 12th is Texas, Nebraska's 13th, Ohio State's 14th, 15th is Mickey, which they're being carried mainly by the media. Notre Dame is 16th, definitely being carried by the media if you're looking at the averages, the polls, at these poll numbers here. Penn State's 17th, Tennessee is 18th, 19th is Michigan, 20th is UCLA, 21st is Kansas State, definitely being carried by the media if you compare it to their actual ranking. Oregon State, who's not even actually ranked, is in 22nd. 23rd is Oklahoma. 24th is West Virginia, which they're being carried definitely by the coaches. And 25th is Cal. And we go ahead and head into the top 25 polls now, in which the latest polls have little love for the 0-8 Devils, which we are now down to 4 undefeated schools left, those being number 2 TCU, number 6 Hawaii, number 7 McNary Central, and number 16 Mickey. As we will go and go through the rest of the top 25 in the coaches, number 1 is Florida, number 2 is TCU, number 3 is Wisconsin, number 4 is LSU, number 5 is Florida State, 6 is Hawaii, 7th is McNary Central, 8th USC, 9th Miami, 10th Virginia Tech, 11th Texas, 12th Arkansas, 13th Ohio State, 14th Nebraska after losing to Texas, 15th Tennessee, 16th Mickey, 17th Notre Dame, 18th Penn State after they lost to Ohio State, 19th is Michigan, 20th is UCLA, 21st is West Virginia, 22nd is Oklahoma, 23rd is Kansas State, 24th is Louisville, who just beat Pittsburgh, and 25th, after suffering a loss to Arizona State, is California. The media says that their polls go like this. Number 1 Florida, number 2 TCU, number 3 LSU, number 4 Wisconsin, number 5 Florida State, number 6 McNary Central, 7th Hawaii, 8th USC, 9th Arkansas, 10th Virginia Tech, 11th Texas, 12th Nebraska. So both polls at least have it wise enough to rank Texas ahead of Nebraska. 13th Miami, 14th Ohio State, which I kind of find weird that the media wants to put Miami in 13th, yet Texas has 3 losses and they're in 11th. But, yeah, that's what the media wants, apparently. Notre Dame is 15th, 16th is Mickey. They didn't even make a single dent in their ranking. 17th is Penn State. 18th is Tennessee. 19th is Oregon State. 20th is Kansas State. 21st is Michigan. 22nd is UCLA. 23rd is Oklahoma. 24th is West Virginia. And 25th, just barely in the rankings, is California. Now, Boston College received some votes, although for whatever reason Louisville's got 185 and they're not listed first, so let's just say Louisville's the closest team here. And for here, Oregon State's just knocking on the door. And now it's time for my favorite part of the week, the one that does take up a lot of time in making this, is the bottom 10, as we will go through each of the conferences to talk about the worst of the worst. Starting in the Mountain West, where we got our top 2 in Wyoming. Still being the only team under 10 points per game at 9.8 points per game. The Cowboys need to get something going against San Diego State this week, with the Aztecs coming off of a 45-28 victory over BYU. And with the Cougars struggling for wins, that score would give Wyoming hope on the offensive side. But maybe not defensively, but well, they could use the offense. I mean, they didn't score a single point against UNLV last week. So, yeah, and speaking of BYU, here they are, number 2. And the Cougars just have the opposite problem with Wyoming. They need defense, allowing 39.6 points per game, the most out of teams that have not gone against McNary Central. They need to find a way to get off the field sooner than when the other team scores. And at 1-7, they need some momentum any way they can find it. Their next opponent is Colorado State, who's program-wise middle of the road. Could be an upset win. Who knows? And now let's travel over to the MAC, and luckily I guess the correct side of the MAC too, for Buffalo. The Bulls need quarterback help in the biggest way. Carl Henry is not helping his team out at all, having more than a 2-to-1 interception ratio. Well, interception-touchdown ratio. They also get behind early, which doesn't help their cause, as they then have to be throwing the ball to try to get back into it. If they can get a great quarterback recruit, or even a good quarterback recruit, they could be able to be competitive in the MAC. Because, I mean, let's take a look at like star ratings, 1 star for Ball State, 1 star for Western Michigan, 2 stars for Akron, 2 stars for Miami University. Northern Illinois had 2 stars. Toledo's had 3. Well, 3 for program. Kent State had 1 star for program. Bowling Green's had 2 stars for their program. Ohio 2 stars. Central Michigan 2 stars. Eastern Michigan's 1 star. Temple's 1 star. Like, if they can just get a good quarterback recruit, they could end up being kind of somewhere closer in this range instead of being the bottom of the bottom here. And now we travel out to the Pac-10 for Washington State. At 1-7, and yet scoring 23 points per game, the Cougars have some offensive firepower to be in the conversation of a 3 or 4 win team. The thing that's holding them back, though, is their defense, allowing 36.1 points per game and over 400 yards per game. They need to find ways to clean things up and start preparing for next season, because this will be tough for them, being in a conference with not only just 3 ranked opponents, but also in one of the best conferences at this point in time. Obviously nowadays, currently Pac-12 is struggling, trying to regroup a bit, but best of luck to them, I will say that. And now we move on to Stanford, in which the Cardinals have been a bit productive on offensive wise, with a total of 474.8 yards per game. But they haven't found the end zone all that much, scoring 21.2 points per game, which, like I would be kind of in the conversation with Washington State about 3, maybe 4 wins, Plus, allowing 38.1 points per game doesn't help your cause in winning games at all, and not pressuring the quarterback is a big problem. With only 11 sacks, tied for worst in the Pac-10, and they need something going on defense to help them win. They're a 6-star academic school, as you can see right there, Perfect timing. Totally planned. Not all just randomly happened. So hopefully they can figure something out with those smart minds over there. And let's now travel all the way over to the other side of the country for the ACC in North Carolina. And the Tar Heels are still in the Tar, now losing 7 in a row. But then again, they went against Mickey. They should get some help on offense and focus on the basketball team going into the offseason because right now, 3-star school, but when you're in the same conference as a 5-star Miami, a 5-star Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech being, what was that, a 4-star? Yeah, 4-star. You can kind of see yourself kind of being lost in the shuffle here. Plus, you got Mickey over here, Florida State, Clemson's kind of being on the rise here, Boston College is good, Maryland's good, and the only school that's kind of doing not too good in the Atlantic is NC State. But then again, it's kind of hard, in my opinion, to get the ball rolling here, conference-wise, when you're in a conference with a lot of good schools, And they just gotta try to bounce back against Maryland for North Carolina, And now let's travel back out to the West, if I'm guessing conferences correctly. Yeah, Utah, where the Utes have 24.7 points per game, which should be having them in the 4, maybe 5-win conversation, especially with them being a 4-star program, But they've allowed 33.1 points per game, which doesn't help out your team. Their main issue is just allowing yards, allowing a total of, on average, 426.4 yards per game. But yet they topped the Mountain West in sacks with 27 and in interceptions with 19. If they can get some more stops, then they will be a team to watch in the conference moving forward. Because, you got Air Force here at 4 and 5. That's 2-star program. Colorado State 3 stars. UNLV 2 stars. San Diego State 2 stars. New Mexico's 2 stars. And TCU's 3 stars. They can get more stops. Easily gonna run through the Mountain West. But now we travel now to Conference USA to talk about Marshall. I know, Southern Miss has the worst conference record, but the Thunder do have 3 wins, including 2 conference wins. But it's more of their on their merit of defense because offensively they're averaging 17.2 points per game, and I think they're averaging on offense themselves 17.2 points per game on offense and 20-something points per game on defense. Should have you probably closer to BYU and Wyoming rather than Auburn and Louisiana Tech. And the reason why I use those teams as references because Auburn, Louisiana Tech is at 3 and 5, and Auburn is also at 3 and 5. And I can just do it like this. Well, Auburn's at 3 and 6, but you get my meaning on that. Now let's travel back over there because you got Tulane. The Green Wave certainly have had their fans feeling green this season, averaging 19.1 points per game on offense and allowing 32.3 points per game on defense. The fans in New Orleans just need to hope the Saints are having a better season, so they at least have something to cheer for. And last but not least, we stay in the state of Louisiana, but this time for the Sun Belt Conference in Louisiana Monroe. The Warhawks are one of the better offenses here, 54th in the nation at 378.1 yards per game on offense and 25 points per game. And with stats like those, I'd expect a 500 record, not 1-7. But allowing 38.8 points per game and 438.2 yards per game, and also throwing 21 interceptions are the biggest reasons why they're sitting at this record. Maybe they can finish strong down the stretch and set themselves up for success next year because, as you saw, they are a one-star program, and they're in a conference with Arkansas State, who's also one-star, Troy, one-star, Louisiana Lafayette, one-star, North Texas, you saw probably quickly, was two-star, yep, FIU's one-star, Florida Atlantic's one-star, Middle Tennessee State's one-star, so basically, if they can just right the ship next season and get ready for next season, they can easily run the conference, you know. And now we're on to another favorite part of the week for mine, the key games of the week. And we have 3 out of the 4 top 25, 3 out of the 4 undefeated teams playing this week, and we're going to talk about all 3 of them first. So let's just go and do this. And we start off with McNary Central at Florida. Heading into this matchup of SEC powerhouses at a combined 15-1. This is easily the game a lot of the nation will watch. Can the Bobcats come into the swamp and give Florida their second loss? Or will the Gators shock the entire nation and beat a team that's looked unbeatable all year long? The Bobcats do come in with the best in every stat possible, while Florida has the second best defense in the country, while also having a top 20 offense. People in Gainesville are ready for this, along with the entire nation, seeing who will come out on top. I say Florida has a strong defense, but won't be strong enough as McNary Central will continue to win and punch their ticket into the SEC championship game in Atlanta. Plus, as you can see by the blue right there, that in the check mark, I control McNary Central, so it's game of the week. I talked about it, but that's only because of the storyline of McNary Central being undefeated. But one that I do not have any control over is Mickey against Virginia. The Devils are going on the road this week after dismantling North Carolina 30-10. Their next target is in Charlottesville and going up against the Cavaliers. The Cavs have been a decent team this year, but haven't faced anyone the caliber of Mickey. Meanwhile, the Devils have gotten wins over currently 14th ranked Nebraska and 5th ranked Florida State, so they have the experience to handle the situation. Plus, Mickey has a defense that's top 15 in the country, so with that said, it's going to be hard to imagine the Cavs offense getting rolling at all. Granted, they're top 40 in the nation, but there's only so much you can do. And I think Mickey is going to win this and continue on being undefeated. And plus, offense that's inside the top 30 compared to a defense that's just barely inside the top 50. And I don't think it's going to really end too well. And now the last undefeated team playing is New Mexico against number 2 TCU. In this Mountain West mashup, the Lobos look to come into Fort Worth and upset the second-ranked Horned Frogs. On paper, this looks like an easy win for TCU, but New Mexico has momentum of their own. After starting 0-2, they have won 6 in a row, which makes this game all the more exciting. New Mexico may have one of the worst defenses in the nation, allowing 443.8 yards per game, but offensively, if you can keep up, and a 17th ranked offense against the 4th best defense in the country should be a fun matchup on that end. It could come down to the wire. I think this one might end up being a lot closer than people realize, and it could even go into overtime, and this could be a big one. But I think New Mexico will pull it off. I believe mainly New Mexico and their offense can be able to find holes in TCU and make this a lot more than exciting than it could be. So, I may be wrong, but you'll just have to find out in the recap episode. Now, the last 2 games, it took me a while to find because, we got quite a few matchups here that I could have talked about, Wisconsin versus Ohio State. I just talked about Wisconsin a couple weeks ago. Ohio State as well. I think I've talked a couple times. Texas, Oklahoma State, Big 12 South stuff. LSU, Alabama. Always a big rivalry game, I could have gone with like Rutgers and Connecticut rivalry game, Kansas State, trying to keep a hold of the North in the Big 12, Iowa versus Northwestern, Big 10 matchup right there, you know. I could have gone with like Michigan State for the Battle of the Paul Bunyan Trophy, you know. Oregon State USC for the Battle of Pac-10, but instead I decided to go with one matchup being Army versus Air Force. In this matchup of the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, the Army Black Knights go up against the Air Force Falcons in a matchup that both branches are willing to fight for. Air Force got knocked out of the possibility to actually win the trophy by losing to Navy last month, but can keep Army away from winning it if they can pull off the win in Colorado Springs. Meanwhile, Army wants this win to set up the Army-Navy game to be even bigger stakes when getting the trophy. This is one of those times where the record isn't important, just the will to win, the will to overcome the other team. And every last person on both sides have already gone through a lot of adversity, especially with basic training for both branches. And I can speak for experience on that one for the Air Force. But in the end, I do think Air Force, who have bowl aspirations, currently being 4-5, and knowing a couple of wins is all it will take to get into a bowl game, will win at home and possibly set up Navy winning the Commander-in-Chief Trophy this season. And now, I scoured through, some of these, like Missouri, Colorado, I could have talked about the Wyoming San Diego State game, UCLA versus Arizona, but I decided to come back up here and talk about a game. I could have talked about this game, Florida State versus Boston College, but the curse isn't around anymore, so I didn't choose to talk about that. Instead, I chose to talk about Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech. And this may seem just another game on the schedule, but it's much bigger than that for the Hokies. When a win here, they keep themselves in contention to compete in Charlotte for the ACC Championship, most likely against Mickey. But first, they have to overcome the head coach of Georgia Tech, the original tribal chief, the OTC, Roman Reigns, and his Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. This hasn't been the best year for the OTC as a head coach, but a win against a top 10 foe could be a way to bring in more recruits and turn this into a place where you want to play football. The Yellow Jackets have already had 2 competitive games with the other teams the Hokies are competing against, though both times coming up short. First with a 34-31 loss to Virginia in Week 4, then losing 14-7 to Miami in Week 7. I do think third time will be the charm, as Georgia Tech pulls off the upset and have fans in Atlanta going crazy. And that's going to be it for this episode. As you can see, we got 4 more weeks left of the season, and then we get to championship week, and then we go into the bowl games. So until then, I will see you all next time.